Welcome. Glad you're here. Before anything else, take a breath. One full breath in and let it go completely. That oxygen was released by something else alive. Trees, grasses, moss on a rock, phytoplankton drifting in the ocean, doing most of the work. Every photosynthesizing thing on this planet is exhaling oxygen right now, and your lungs just pulled in what they released. And when you breathe out, you release carbon dioxide, which those same organisms take in, strip the carbon from to build their own tissue, and hand the oxygen back to the air that returns to you. You breathe what they exhale. They breathe what you exhale, not as a metaphor, as chemistry happening in your chest at this moment. And that exchange has been running without a break for 2 billion years, since the first photosynthetic organisms appeared in shallow seas and began filling an atmosphere that had no oxygen in it at all. Every breath you have ever taken has been part of that. You have never breathed alone, not once in your entire life. And it is not optional. Take away that oxygen and you have only minutes to live. Take away the sun that drives the whole exchange and the food chain collapses in days. Take away the stars that forge the atoms you're built from. And there was never a you here at all. So here is one thing that is true about you right now. You are completely dependent, not sentimentally, materially, continuously, without pause. Here is the second thing. You are completely independent. You have boundaries, real ones. Your immune system is enforcing them at this moment, identifying and destroying what it doesn't recognize as yours. You have agency. You chose to be here. You could stop, and your experience is yours alone. No one else has ever been inside it or ever will be. You are in this place, at this moment, and nowhere else in the universe. Both of those are measurable. Both of them are certain. And both of them seem like they do not fit together. Nothing can be entirely its own and entirely borrowed at the same time. But you are, and so is everything else. Hold on to that. We're going to follow it all the way down. Start with what you're made of. You are a whole organism. Bones, arteries, organs. Each organ is made of cells. Each cell is made of molecules. The molecules are built from atoms, and the atoms are combinations of smaller particles still. Most people stop there. It's a natural place to stop. But there's a different question sitting underneath that one. Where did any of it come from? Let's start at the beginning. As far back as physics can actually see, the early universe was too hot for anything complicated to hold together. Not too hot for atoms, too hot for the parts of atoms. Matter existed as free quarks, moving too fast to bind to anything. Then it expanded, and expanding cooled it. And at about a millionth of a second, the quarks locked together into the first protons and neutrons. And a lone proton is a hydrogen nucleus. So the moment there were protons, there was hydrogen. Over the next few minutes, some of those protons and neutrons fused, building helium nuclei and a trace of lithium. Then the expansion cooled everything below the temperature fusion needs, and it stopped. 3/4 hydrogen, 1/4 helium, nothing heavier. It took another few 100,000 years to cool enough for those nuclei to capture electrons and become actual atoms. But the raw material was already set within minutes. That's the whole inventory. Hydrogen, some helium, a trace of lithium. No carbon, no oxygen, no iron. None of the material a body could be built out of. Hydrogen is the simplest thing that can be called an element. One proton, one electron. Nothing else. And every heavier atom that has ever existed was built starting from that. For a long stretch, that's all there was. Hydrogen and helium spread thin, slightly clumpier in some places than others. Gravity went to work on those clumps. Every bit of gas pulls on every other bit. And where there was already more gas, the pull was stronger, so it drew in more still. The dense regions got denser, and the denser they got, the harder they pulled. All that gas is pulled inward, and being pulled means moving. The further it travels, the faster it goes, which is what heat is. Particles in motion. So the middle gets hot. Hot enough, and the atoms come apart. Not the nuclei, the electrons. Stripped loose. What's left is plasma, bare nuclei and free electrons. The gas keeps pouring in towards the center. It keeps getting hotter. The nuclei are all positively charged, so they repel each other, and for a long time that repulsion wins. But at around 10 million degrees, they're moving fast enough to overcome it. They stop bouncing off each other and start sticking together. That's fusion. That's a star igniting. Hydrogen fuses into helium, helium into carbon, carbon into oxygen, neon, silicon. Each step demanding more heat than the last. Each one running in the core of a star that holds itself up against its own gravity by burning. Iron is where it stops. Fusing iron costs more energy than it releases. Once the core is iron, there's nothing left to burn, and it can't hold. In the largest stars, when the core gives way, the collapse rebounds as a supernova. And in that blast, in seconds, elements heavier than iron are forged and thrown out into space. That's stellar nucleosynthesis. Simple things fusing into complex ones over and over, in furnaces that gravity built. And when those stars died, they scattered everything they had made out into the dark. That material drifted and gathered and formed new stars and planets. And eventually it gathered into you, the calcium in your bones, the iron in your blood, the carbon in every cell you have. All of it was made that way, inside something that exploded long before this planet existed. And the hydrogen, still the most common atom in your body, is older than any star. It traces back to the first few minutes of the universe. Not similar material, the same material, one origin, material unity. Now climb back up, because the same move runs the other way. Quarks make protons. Protons and neutrons make nuclei. Nuclei and electrons make atoms. Atoms make molecules. Molecules make cells. Cells make organisms. Organisms make ecosystems. And outward to galaxies and the web they hang in. From something smaller than an atomic nucleus out to structures spanning billions of light years, more than 40 orders of magnitude, and the same move repeating the entire way. Parts becoming wholes, and those wholes becoming parts. Compositional unity. Now look at the mathematics. The inverse square law governs gravity. It also governs light and sound and electric charge. The same mathematics of waves describes a vibrating string, a sound crossing a room, and light itself. These are systems with nothing physically in common, and they obey the same equations. Mathematical unity. Now look at what happens when things combine. Hydrogen is not wet. Oxygen is not wet. Put them together and water is wet. At every level, something appears that the parts did not have. Atoms aren't alive. Arrange them one way and you get a cell that is. A single neuron has no experience. Wire up enough of them and something is looking out. This is real and it is everywhere. And you should let it bother you for a second. Because it runs straight into something you already believe. Even if you've never once said it out loud. You believe things don't come from nothing. That whatever comes out of a process had to be in there somehow to begin with. Nobody had to teach you that. It's just how causes work, and you rely on it every day without thinking about it. And here is water, being wet when nothing that went into it was. That's not a small problem. It's one of the oldest ones there is. And everything we build later has to survive it. There is an answer. It's further down than we are right now. And when we get there, it won't be by pretending the emergence wasn't real. For now, just mark it. Add it to the list of things that are true and don't sit comfortably together. Emergent unity. Now look at life. Every living thing on this planet, bacteria, fungus, redwood, whale, you, runs the same code. The same DNA chemistry, the same 20 amino acids, the same molecule for carrying energy. Not similar systems. One system, one tree, one trunk, evolutionary unity. And that trunk doesn't begin at the first cell. Look again at what the stars were doing. Simple things pressed together into more complex things. Hydrogen into helium, helium into carbon, and oxygen and iron. Parts becoming wholes. The same move you saw a few minutes ago. Except now you're watching it happen in time. And it did not stop when those stars died. The atoms they scattered were pulled together into molecules. Molecules into longer chains. A continuous building up process. And on at least one planet, one of those chains began copying itself. Nothing new arrived to make that happen. No new material, no new process. Just another stage of parts coalescing into wholes. The same atoms, doing the same thing they had been doing, one stage further on. So life is not a second story that begins where physics ends. It is the first story, still running. Material evolution and biological evolution are not two processes. They are one continuous process. Biological evolution is the later stage of material evolution, earlier and later in one unbroken sequence. Two of the unities we've named, and they were never two. And there's one more, but you already know this one. It was the first breath of this film. Nothing stands alone. You depend on the tree. The tree depends on the fungus threaded through its roots. A network that trades sugar for minerals and carries signals between trees that never touch each other. The fungus depends on the soil. The soil depends on what died to make it. Pull any thread out of that, and the rest doesn't carry on unaffected. It reorganizes, or it fails. Interdependent unity, and there are more. The entropy that measures disorder in thermodynamics turns out to be the same mathematics as the entropy that measures information. A river delta, a tree, a lung, and a bolt of lightning all branch in the same pattern because they're all solving the same problem. Every place anyone looks carefully, there's another one waiting. And before we go further, what about the mess? What about randomness, decay, noise, things falling apart? That doesn't look like unity. But notice how every one of those is defined. Noise is only noise relative to a signal. Decay is only decay relative to a structure that was there first. Randomness is measured as departure from a pattern. Disorder doesn't come with its own separate set of laws. It has no independent existence to point at. It's what order looks like when it's coming apart. And even that happens lawfully at rates we can calculate to several decimal places. The mess isn't a rival to the pattern. It's parasitic on it. Physics, chemistry, mathematics, biology, ecology. Researchers who never spoke to each other, working on problems with nothing to do with one another. Now look back at that list. Not one of those unities is the whole picture. Material unity can't tell you why the same equations keep reappearing. Mathematical unity can't tell you why life runs on one code. Each one catches something the others miss entirely. That's exactly what happens when several people describe one object from different sides. Nobody's wrong. Nobody has all of it. These aren't separate unities that happen to coincide. This is one unity, and we keep finding new angles to see it from. 2,500 years ago, Heraclitus put it in a single line. Out of all things there comes a unity, and out of a unity, all things. He had no instruments. He was just watching carefully. So come back to the impossible fact. You are one of those unities, a whole made of parts, made of stellar material, organized in nested layers, described by universal equations, showing properties your parts don't have. The one we said we'd have to come back to. Running the same code as every living thing. Breathing inside an exchange you cannot step out of. You are not separate from any of it. And yet, you are still you. That boundary is real, and it's defended at enormous metabolic cost. Your experience is private. No one else has ever been inside it or ever will be. You are here and not anywhere else. Both true, total dependence, genuine independence. And it isn't only you. Look anywhere. A neuron fires on its own and cannot survive without the cell around it. A cell lives autonomously and needs chemistry it does not control. A tree photosynthesizes alone and depends on the fungal network beneath it. A galaxy holds its own shape and is held in a cluster by gravity. Independence inside dependence. Everywhere. At every scale. What kind of reality allows both at once? And this isn't a puzzle you get to shrug at, because both halves have to hold. Drop the dependence, and you've got something floating free of everything else, which is false and demonstrably so. Drop the independence, and there's no you at all. Just a ripple that briefly looked like somebody. And you know that's wrong from the inside right now, more certainly than you know anything else. Any account of reality that survives has to hold both of those at the same time. Most don't even try. Nothing so far explains it. Keep it in view. We'll come back to it and it will still be standing. But to get anywhere near it, you have to notice something almost everyone misses. Two things can lean on each other, side by side, or one thing can be held up from underneath. Those are not the same, and telling them apart changes everything. Start with your parents. They caused you to exist. Without them, no you. That dependency is absolute. But remove them today and you carry on. You grieve, you continue. Now remove them before you were born, and there is no you at all. Not ever. Same removal, opposite result. The only thing that changed was when. And this is exactly where it's easy to take a wrong turn, so it's worth slowing down. You might conclude that the second case proves your parents were holding you up all along, that they were underneath you, not beside you. But look at what's actually being removed. Before birth, there is no you yet. Nothing is being held up because there's nothing there to hold. Taking your parents away doesn't collapse something that exists. It stops something from ever arriving. That's still a cause acting in sequence. You've just reached in earlier. And if the timing of your intervention decided the category, then everything would be the deeper kind, because you can always reach back far enough to erase anything. Remove the carbon before it ever assembled. Remove your grandparents. Remove the star. The distinction can't be about when you meddle. It has to be about the relationship itself. So, two ways a thing can be genuinely indispensable. Originating. It had to have happened. Your parents. The star that forged the calcium in your bones. Take it out of history and you never appear at all. Sustaining. It has to be happening. Your atoms. The chemistry running in your cells. Take it out right now and you stop. Both are absolute. Neither is optional. Neither is a lesser kind of need. But your parents are finished. Whatever they did, they did. The work is complete, and the cause can step away. Your atoms are not finished. They are doing it right now, and they cannot stop. That's the whole difference. Not how much it mattered, whether it's still working. Now the other side-by-side kind. Reciprocal, and you met this one before we had said a single word of theory. It was the breath. Plants release the oxygen animals breathe. Animals release the carbon dioxide plants take in. Each one supplies something the other needs, running in both directions at once. Here, neither one gets to leave. Both have to keep existing for the exchange to keep going. But notice what's still true. Neither one is making the other. The plant isn't constituting the animal. There are two complete things trading. So here's the test. One question, three possible answers, and it sorts every dependency there is. Take it away right now. What happens to the thing that depended on it? If it keeps going, the cause was originating. It already finished its work, and it was free to leave. If it fails over time, deprivation, then decline, then death. The cause was supplying something. It was a partner, not a foundation. If it simply isn't there, no dying, no process, nothing to watch, then the cause was constituting it. Only that third one is holding anything up from underneath. Call it vertical. The other two are horizontal. And the tell is unmistakable once you know to look for it. Dying takes time. Not existing doesn't. So run the test downward, through yourself. And notice, you've walked this ground already. We went down it at the start of the film, just naming what you're made of. Walk it again, from the top this time, and ask the removal question at every single rung. Your consciousness depends on your neurons. Take them away. There's no dying, no fading. There's just nothing there. Vertical. Your neurons depend on cellular chemistry. Now, vertical. That chemistry depends on atomic structure. Now, vertical. Those atoms depend on quantum fields, the deepest layer physics has found, and will come back to what they actually are. Now, vertical. Nothing in that chain gets to take a break. Every level is holding the one above it, continuously at this exact moment. Now, how should we picture that? Most people reach for a building, floors resting on floors all the way down to a foundation in the ground. And something about that is exactly right. Take the foundation out from under a house and it comes down. Now, not eventually. That's sustaining. That's the kind we want. But the word foundation plays a trick here, because when you picture one, you probably also picture it being poured once, years ago, finished and walked away from. And that's the other kind, originating. A building has both of them tangled together in the same object, the pouring that's over and the holding that never stops, which makes it a confusing picture, because half of what it shows you is the wrong half. So use a picture where the holding is impossible to miss. A chandelier hanging from a chain. Somebody hung it once. That part's finished. Same as the pouring. But look at the chain. Every link is holding the link below it. Right now. Not once, long ago. At every instant. Continuously. Or it isn't holding at all. Cut any link, and everything beneath it doesn't slowly weaken. It falls. And nobody looks at a hanging chain and thinks its work is over. You can see it working. That's the difference. Not that the chandelier has no history, but that you can't mistake the history for the holding. That's vertical dependence, simultaneous, present tense, load-bearing at every moment. Hold on to that picture. It's the best one we have so far. Later on, we're going to find exactly where it breaks. And one thing has to be said carefully, because this is where the objection comes. Influence runs both ways. Your mind can change your brain, decide to focus, and your neural activity measurably shifts. That's real, and it's not in question. But existence runs one way. Neurons can exist without consciousness. Plenty of organisms have them. Consciousness cannot exist without neurons, or something like them. You can influence what holds you up. You cannot stop needing it. So that's the chain. Every single thing that exists is being held in existence right now by something more fundamental than itself. And so is that. Now, as we started with something that looked impossible, and we haven't solved it. If anything, it just got sharper. Because the dependence isn't a story about where you came from. It's happening this second, every level of you without pause. It started with a breath, and it hasn't stopped since. And you are still here, still yourself, still the only one who has ever been on the inside of your own experience. That question is still standing. But we know one thing now that we didn't before. The chain has to go somewhere. Your consciousness rests on neurons. Neurons on the chemistry running inside them. That chemistry on atoms. Atoms on quantum fields. And quantum fields rest on what? There are only three answers to that. Only three. And two of them fall apart the moment you look closely. That's where we go next.